Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I'm going to tell you about 20 of the absolute best movies you can currently watch on Amazon Prime. So whether you are a current Amazon Prime member or whether or not you're juggling as to whether or not it is worth it, I'm going to tell you about 20 of the absolute best movies currently available. Now there definitely are some other great picks that deserve to be on this list, and they're absent because they've been listed on this channel somewhat recently, so I wanted to leave them off. But let's start all the way back at number 20 with a great pick, What We Do in the Shadows. Now, I've talked about this one on this channel at length, many people thanking me for turning them on to this movie. It turns out this is about to become, they've already released a trailer, about to become a series on FX, I believe. It looks like a funny series. The premise is great. It's a vampire movie that is sort of a reality show, kind of The Office type of a format. Really great jokes, really well written, really well put together. It's hilarious. It's so funny. In fact, I'm really wondering why it's not higher up on my list. But I watch it every single Halloween and probably will for the foreseeable future. Good Time stars Robert Pattinson, just came out last year. It's a really great little one-nighter. It's a crazy story of one night, and Pattinson does an incredible job. I've never really been partial to him, as I was never really partial to the Twilight series, but he really stands out in this movie, and he plays a very street smart guy that still cannot get out of his own way. This one's got incredible like neon lighting throughout it, just a really cool, edgy vibe that I really enjoyed, and the story's good. So if you like my recommendations, I think you'll probably dig this one too. Number 18, The Infiltrator, starring Bryan Cranston, is about a real guy who spent a big portion of his life infiltrating Pablo Escobar's organization. It's an undercover thing, kind of like Donnie Brasco in a lot of ways. Maybe not quite as good, which is why it's back here at number 18. But still, Bryan Cranston's incredible. Some really great, tense scenes in it. And if you're a fan of the show Narcos on Netflix, this would be a great companion to that series. Whoa. My number 17 pick is The Matrix. If you don't know anything about The Matrix or you haven't seen it by now, I don't know that I can help you, so I'll just go ahead and move on to number 16, which is actually The Blues Brothers. Now, hang with me a little bit. This is an incredibly well-directed comedy movie. I think it really rivals movies like Caddyshack, Animal House. I mean, the opening sequence of Jake getting out of jail is shot really well. There's some other great cinematography in it, some great musical numbers. Coming from a guy who does not like musicals whatsoever, I love this one. And then they do something so funny, even though there's so many great scenes and sequences, the climax of this movie with the car chase, where they total hundreds of police cars and you know other vehicles, is hilarious. The cars piling up never ends, and it's just a joke. The amount of cars that they pile up in this movie is one joke, basically. And the amount of money it costs to pull off that joke it's one of the most expensive jokes ever put to film. I love it, love everything about this movie, and that's why it's on the list. Number 15, for a change of pace, Bound is about a couple of lesbians that decide to knock off the mob. And it's actually directed by the Wachowski brothers when they both used to be brothers before The Matrix. So the cool thing about this story of the making of the film is they wrote The Matrix, sold it with the caveat that they directed. The studio, Warner Brothers, did not know whether or not they could direct a feature. So they said, here, write something you can shoot for $1 million. We'll give you $1 million. If you pull it off, you're directing The Matrix. This is that movie, and they definitely pulled it off. It stars Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon. It's edge-of-your-seat thriller stuff. You know, it's from the 90s. It feels a little bit dated at this point, but not much considering how old it is. And it's just one of those great little hidden gems. I'm excited to bring this one to you because I know a lot of people watching have not seen this one yet. At number 14, a pretty big movie that I know a lot of people missed is Allied. It stars Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard, I think that's how you say it. But this is a good movie. It feels old school. Now, the The way it's shot is all cutting edge. It's crisp, it's clean. But just the type of movie, it feels like an old school movie, and it's really riveting. It's about a guy who finds out his wife may be a German spy, and he is trying to figure out for himself if it's true or not before the sort of scheme the government puts him up to completely plays out and she's outed. So it's this race against time. He's conflicted the whole time. It's got not a lot of action, but the action sequences are great, and it's just beautifully shot. It's got kind of even a Casablanca type feel early on in the beginning. Really, really beautiful movie. If you have not seen it and you're into the World War II stuff in the slightest, definitely check it out. Number 13, Bringing Out the Dead is one of Martin Scorsese's most underrated movies. He happens to be my favorite director, but Bringing Out the Dead is an incredible movie from him, starring Nicolas Cage, Patricia Arquette, John Goodman. It's got a small cult following, but it is very, very underappreciated. Again, this is another one. If you like my recommendations, watch this one with a new set of eyes. Even if you watched it years ago, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. There's this really dark beauty to this one, and Nicolas Cage is really great in it. A little over the top, but that's really when Nicolas Cage is at his best anyway.
Frank! Are you okay? I've never felt better in my life. How are you? I'm good. Good.
Number 12, Hereditary. Really one of the best horror movies to have come out in years. I've talked about it a couple of times on the channel recently. Really well crafted. Feels like a classic horror movie at times. It's patient, which is so critical for telling this type of story. You've got to like wind up that rubber band before you let it snap. And if you rush through a story like this, you miss a lot of moments. This one does a great job, not just of building tension, but of leading you up to expect one thing and then get another. And it is dark. It is really, really dark. I'll move on since I've talked about it. But again, if you have not seen Hereditary yet, prepare to be creeped the fuck out. Speaking of creepy, my number 11 pick, and this is just a sign of how good this list is David Lynch's Blue Velvet. Now, this is the only David Lynch film on Amazon Prime at the moment, I believe, but it is a great one, and it's one of his more accessible ones. It's a fairly straightforward story, but with some oddness to it that is only capable of coming from David Lynch. David Lynch, if you've never liked his work, this one would be worth trying out, but his work to me has a particular flavor, like I said, that you can only get from him. And Blue Velvet is covered in it, yet it's not completely warped like some of his other work. If you like this type of content, definitely click the subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon so you get notified when I put out new videos just like this one. Number 10, True Grit. Has some really nostalgic value for me, and this is the original True Grit with John Wayne. I liked the Coen Brothers remake. The classic, because of the nostalgia aspect, is why I love it. John Wayne is just great as Rooster Cogburn. I love everything about this movie. If you love old school westerns, odds are you've seen this one more than once. But if you're wanting to get into them and you haven't yet, True Grit is a great place to get started. Number 9 is The Conversation, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Gene Hackman. This one actually came out between The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, actually in 74, the same year as The Godfather Part 2, and it really got overshadowed by The Godfather. Now, this is a brilliant film, but Gene Hackman plays a surveillance expert, and one of the brilliant things about this film is it does a great job of explaining things to you without saying anything. So the surveillance technology and methods are foreign to your average audience goer, and so we really need to be told how things work and what exactly he's doing with this device and all of that. And rather than him sort of having to explain it to another character in order to thereby explain it to us, Coppola does a great job of taking his time and just showing you what's working as Hackman's character sort of does his work. You're not really going to expect this movie to go where it goes. That said, I'll say no more. If you consider yourself to be a movie buff, this one is a must-watch. My number 8 pick is You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Now, this one came out in 2018, and for me, it's one of the best movies of 2018. Joaquin Phoenix is in top form. It's one of his best performances I've ever seen. The cinematography is beautiful. This one is violent, yet also still just beautiful to look at. Phoenix plays a guy who saves kids from sex trafficking rings. So very, very grim subject matter, but the movie manages to be beautiful during dark moments and then also just really visceral in other moments. This one, again, without really explaining much, the story does such a great job, the storytelling rather, from the director does such a great job of taking you through this journey, through the characters and everything. It just works so, so well. Another one on this list, if you're with me on sort of my darker movie recommendations that I give on this channel all the time, You Were Never Really Here is a must-watch. A personal favorite of mine for years now is Mud, starring Matthew McConaughey. Now, this one came out right before Dallas Buyers Club. Reese Witherspoon is in it. I'm partial to this one because it does take place in Arkansas. I'm originally from Mississippi. You've got a couple of teenage boys that find a guy living out on an island in the middle of the Mississippi River. The way these kids play out in the woods is a lot of what my childhood looked like. It appeals to a broad audience. Like I said, I've watched it with a lot of people, and everyone I've ever showed this movie to has loved it. My number 6 pick is Arrival, directed by Denis Villeneuve, who did Blade Runner 2049. And this is kind of the first time I saw a movie from someone that felt like a Christopher Nolan movie that was not Christopher Nolan. It had its own flavor. I don't think it was ripping Nolan off or anything, but it had a very unexpected way of taking you through the alien invasion. I thought it was just a great way to look at it, and I just think it's really well directed and sort of a beautiful movie. If you kind of passed on this one, thinking it was just something you'd already seen or it was just going to be like something you've seen a bunch of times, it's not, in my opinion. It has its own thing going on and just really, really well crafted for like a summer blockbuster. My number 5 pick is Chinatown, which is really hailed as one of the best movies ever made. Now, I kind of agree with that, but I also struggle with it a little bit. It's a little overlong, and obviously you got the whole Roman Polanski thing, which I'm not going to get into because this is a fun movie list, but it is a great movie. It's a great template for a detective movie and how to pace things out. It has been not copied, but it has influenced a lot of films to have been made since, and it will continue to do so for years, which I think is why so many critics hail this one as one of the best movies ever made. All of that said, it's very entertaining. It's a great noir throwback detective story. It plays out well. Jack Nicholson's great in it. The movie looks incredible. It really is a masterpiece. And if you've just slept on it and never bothered to watch it, I would give it a shot. I don't think Roman Polanski is still skimming any money off of it. I don't know. Maybe I should check that out. My number 4 pick is Stagecoach, which is easily the oldest movie on this list. It's one of John Wayne's first films, and it is an incredible example of what was possible with stunts and special effects almost 100 years ago. Many of the stunts you'll see in this movie are not only amazing, they're actually done. These are deadly stunts done on film for the first time in a lot of cases. Really incredible stuff. Everything's happening in camera. Obviously, there were no computers. There were no real, what we would today call special effects. Well, you have to watch this one, though, as someone in a movie theater in 1939 that had never seen anything of the sort. If you're able to do that mentally, this one will blow your mind. Number 3 is another personal favorite of mine, Brazil, directed by Terry Gilliam. This is an amazing dystopian future movie. Brazil is unlike anything else you'll ever see. Really amazing cinematography, amazing production design, just bizarre, crazy visuals, and this amazing story of this sort of dystopian future where everyone's in boxes and cubicles, and you've seen things kind of like it and influenced by it since, but nothing quite like Brazil. Again, movie nuts, movie nerds, you need to watch Brazil before it's gone. Luckily, they just added it, so it'll be around longer than a lot of the other ones on this list, but don't wait too long. My number 2 pick is what I consider to be the best action movie of all time, but man, it's got a couple of contenders lately with movies like Fury Road, but I still hold Terminator 2 Judgment Day as the best action movie ever made. I'm sure it'll be dethroned sometime soon because that genre has really, really picked up lately, but Terminator 2, as much as I like Terminator 2 also is just one of the best sequels ever made. It did everything better. Again, the stunts are incredible. A lot of those happening in camera. The story's great. I watch this movie maybe once a year, and it looks like it was shot yesterday. James Cameron was a genius when he made this, and the look of the special effects and things does not look dated. That said, you end up with this really incredible story as well. Hopefully you've all seen it by now, and I'm telling you, if you have not, if you never bothered to watch Terminator 2, I'll give you permission. You have permission to turn this video off, turn YouTube off, and go watch it right now. And for those of you that are still with me after that, Raging Bull is my number 1 pick. It's been a long time favorite of mine, and it's not even my favorite Martin Scorsese movie, but it's so incredible in so many ways. Even though it's in black and white when, I think in 84 is maybe when it came out, or maybe it was 80, I should probably know that. But even though color had been around for decades, they filmed it in black and white for a couple of reasons, but one was so it looked authentic to the time, and it didn't just look like a movie. And I think that was brilliant. Some of the best acting ever put to screen on display in this movie. And it's a really kind of a heartbreaking story about somebody, again, that cannot get out of their own way. And there's a lot to learn from the Jake LaMotta character, especially for men that maybe struggle a little bit with their own masculinity, sort of like, you know, causing them to sort of hit a wall over and over again. I know I've struggled with that, and this movie definitely sort of helped me see things that I couldn't see without it. So that's another reason I love this one. But let me know what you will be watching in the comments below. I do read those, believe it or not. And if you want to support the channel, I got a link to Patreon below. You can be a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month, and you can cancel that anytime. So if you feel like you get value out of the show, check that out. If you're an Amazon Prime user, there's also an Amazon link in that description. If you just click on that before you shop on Amazon, not only will you see some DVD deals that I've curated, but no matter what you buy, it'll give the show a little bit of kickback as well. There's a merch shop, all of that in the description, but I will keep making episodes like this as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking this one out, and you will see me on the next one.